don't hesitate to throw any suggestions out there. So we're going to circle around to Joe Kutner. Joe is with Heroku. Heroku. I say Q, it's Q. Okay. And is this enough light? You want it darker for the screen? What you need there?
I'm good. Can you guys see it?
Okay, everybody see that all right? If so, we'll let Joe introduce and go from there.
Yeah, so I work at Heroku. Heroku's based in San Francisco, but I work in Huntsville. I work remotely. Heroku is a platform as a service, which means it's a cloud-based platform for building and deploying and scaling applications without managing any infrastructure. So if you compare Heroku to other cloud platforms like Amazon, which is an infrastructure as a service, Heroku actually sits on top of Amazon, and we provide sort of a curated layer for deploying your application without having to do a lot of operations work, or in many cases, any operations work. So we handle updates to security things. For example, we have a very important OpenSSL update coming out, I think, tomorrow. So if you were working on DigitalOcean or rolling your own Amazon images, those are things you'd have to manage yourself, but instead we manage them for you. So we support officially a number of different languages and their associated frameworks. So Ruby was Heroku's first big, or actually only framework, Ruby on Rails, that it supported. And actually when Heroku first came out with its Rails pass, it was considered the first platform as a service, sort of defined that genre of product. But since then it's branched out to many other languages and frameworks. My job at Heroku is the JVM platform owner, so I'm responsible for this one, this one, this one, a little bit of this one that's JRuby, and then some others that aren't shown here because there's like a plethora of JVM languages. So what I wanted to do today was pick one of these and walk through the steps of setting up a sample application, deploying it to Heroku, scaling it up, viewing the logs, provisioning add-ons like databases and things like that. We can do a Java, there's some Java people here, we can do a Java one, but I would actually prefer to do one that I'm less familiar with because I think that way I'll be sure not to glass over or skip important stuff. So what language should we do? Any preferences? PHP. Yeah, I figured there might be some PHP people here. Wow. All right, the problem with the PHP, well, yeah, let's do PHP. Let's see what happens. We might have time to do a couple of these too. All right, so we have these guides somewhere. Yeah, getting started. That just walk you through step by step. And if you go to Heroku.com, you can find these too. All right, so we need a free Heroku account. I have a Heroku account. PHP installed. Actually, I don't even need these things installed locally. If I don't run the app locally, I can just run it straight on Heroku. That's what I'm going to start by doing. The first thing is you need to download this Heroku tool belt, which gives you a Heroku command on your command line with a bunch of things. With this Heroku tool belt, you can log in. I'm already logged in. Yeah, I'm already logged in as me. All right, so that's the basic setup of the environment. Now I'm going to take this sample application that we have, a PHP getting started. It's in a Git repository on GitHub. So let's take a look at that real quick. I literally know nothing about PHP, so.
It's the best thing ever.
So is there anything here I should be looking at? There's a composer. I know it uses composer, whatever that is. It's like a package manager kind of thing.
It's a dependency.
Dependency manager. All right. So I assume this is a fairly typical PHP application. What's in here? Oh, there's an index file.
Is that PHP info?
All right. So it's a very basic hello world kind of thing. Any other stuff? Yeah. All right. Okay, cool. So I've got this locally. Good. Yes. All right.
Oh, you haven't learned Emacs yet?
I like that. That's a good way to put it. All right.
For those, he was using BIM. For those who don't know, and BIM Emacs are, eternal battle.
I've never heard it put so eloquently.
I didn't want to offend your lesser tool there.
Sorry, he'll install Adam here in a bit.
I actually, yeah, I've got Adam. There you go. I don't like it though. I use it, but I don't like it. Okay, so with this app, I could run this app locally if I knew what I was doing, but we'll skip that part. I can also use this. Oh, you probably, geez, you guys gotta tell me if you can't see stuff. Is that better?
It's fine.
Dim the lights a tad.
Oh, good.
Yes,
Yeah, that's a little
Is that better?
Thanks, Rod.
Okay, so with that Heroku tool belt, I can run Heroku Create. This creates a free application for me. So it provisions a repository for me to deploy to and an application which will allow me to launch and run this app in the cloud. And the name of that application is Limitless Thicket 6078. And this is where I would access it on the web. So it's empty, there's nothing there right now. So the first thing I'll do is deploy to it. And I deploy to Heroku by pushing to a Git repository. So when I ran Heroku Create, it actually provisioned a new Git repository for me on Heroku. So the one I have locally that I cloned from GitHub, I can push that up to Heroku. And when I do that, Heroku will detect based on the fact that I have a composer.json that this is a PHP app, and it will do PHP things.
You didn't have to add it as a remote?
No, the Heroku create command did that.
Okay.
Yeah, good question. So what you're saying is how did it know, or how was that git push Heroku, how did that exist? When I ran the create command, it attached that remote repository to my local remotes. Yeah. Okay, so it did PHP stuff. Does this mean anything to you guys?
That's the composer looks like.
Symphony.
installing all
Yeah,
the
Symphony.
dependencies.
I've heard that before.
Right. The Symphony's a framework that
Okay.
can be pulled in.
All right, cool. So that app has been pushed up to Heroku.
Is it run?
Yeah, we'll make sure it's running with the Heroku PS command. Yeah, it's the free version. There's a web process. This is the command it used to launch the application. That is actually defined by a file that's in this repo that was put here for us called the proc file. All right, and so it is up, it's running. So I can open this with Heroku Open, which will launch my browser towards that limitless thicket. And there it is. So that's the PHP app running on Heroku.
Do you have a database you can talk to?
Yeah, we can do that. Let me go through a couple other things first. All right, so I can also scale this application up. So right now, when I ran PS, you saw there's one web instance running. If I, suddenly my Hello app becomes really popular and people are like, oh, I want to hello my friends, then you can scale up using the tool belt as well. So I can create 5 instances. That's wrong too. They just changed all this, so don't have these off the top of my head. Okay, so now I have a non-free application which allows me to scale up. And if I run Heroku PS again, I'll see there's my original process already running and 5 new ones starting up. So that's how I can scale up without dealing with any kind of infrastructure, without provisioning new AMIs or launching Amazon instances.
How strong is the free instance?
It is a half gig of memory, and it's in a multi-tenant container environment, just like Docker. So it's like having a Docker container running on Heroku effectively.
Okay.
So, all right, I can also scale back down with the same command. Now, when I push to Heroku with the git push command, it actually creates an image. We were talking about Docker, so it creates this image that represents my application. It's like a package that contains all of the PHP runtime and my application itself, and just everything that's necessary for my application to run. And each time I deploy, it creates a new one of these and then versions the old one. So I can use a command like Heroku releases to view a history of my deployments. So if I deploy changes that are breaking and and cause problems, I can quickly roll back and then debug that problematic release in a offline thread. All right, so let's move on through here. Okay, yeah. So there's also, you're probably wondering, well, what's going on that server? You can view the logs for that process with the Heroku logs command, which would look just like if you were running it locally effectively. Uh-oh.
Internal error.
Okay, it was just a fluke. Okay, yeah, so here what you see is, this is when I scaled down, so this is it shutting down those 4 extra instances. Here are the other instances starting up, I presume. Starting process, starting HTTPD, all sorts of PHP things. So yeah, this is how you check the logs, see what's happening to the application. Actually, let's do this. If I open it up, you'll see the router, the Heroku router notifying that there's a request made, and then everything that was done, or everything that was logged within the application. All right, let's go back to our guide. So that's logs. I already talked a little bit about the proc file. This is this is what tells Heroku how to run my application. We could also add like worker processes here. Whatever your worker or background jobs or whatever they are, you define these here, and then you can run them with a command like Heroku run worker once they're defined in there. In addition to custom workers, you can run one-off jobs. You could run a bash script. So if I run Heroku run bash, it'll actually launch a shell with the context of my application.
So it ran that. So you're on the server now running bash.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So
How thorough is the bash capability?
It's bash. It's all bash. So what it's done though is it's created a new container for my application. So each time I scaled up, when I scaled from 1 to 5, I wasn't just launching new processes. I was launching new containers, which are effectively highly isolated groups of processes that can't interact with each other. And so when I execute Heroku run, I'm getting a new container, a new isolated environment. So what this allows me to do is run database migrations or little one-off jobs without hogging resources from the other processes or interfering with the other processes in some way. What I'm not doing here is logging into a production server and mucking with stuff while my application is running and handling requests. So I can see this is the same application I had locally running, but on the remote server. All right, so I know what a proc file is. All right, we talked about the PS command.
Is the bash capability part of the free plan?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that image that I was talking about contains, like I said, depending on your application, the application itself, the runtimes you need. So the PHP contains a PHP runtime, the Java apps contain a Java runtime, and then it contains a few essential tools like bash and just some command line tools, very, very basic stuff. But then in your build setup, you can add additional app packages or whatever you need for your application. So it starts out very minimal, but it's Linux. You can add whatever you want to it. All right, so let's do some damage to this app. We're going to add dependencies. So in that composer JSON, let's take a look at this. All right, it right now has Silix and monolog, which I assume are very important. And we want to use these. What is auto load? Does anybody know anything about PHP?
I've not used those packages.
It looks like it requires just pulling in pulling in the PHP from one of those packages.
Whatever autoload is, that's where it's getting the rest of the stuff.
Oh yeah, this stuff. So this stuff is already in here. I think this guide was telling us how to set it up, but these dependencies are already there. The idea is you can modify your dependencies and do everything you would do locally, and then Heroku will install it'll run Composer update for you on the Heroku side to fetch those dependencies. You don't have to do any additional work. Okay, here. Yeah, for example, we'll add this twig dependency.
And Twig's a template system.
There's a Composer lock. I probably do need to run Composer locally. I don't think I have that installed. All right, we'll skip that since I don't have Composer locally. Let's try the database stuff. Provisioning an add-on. Okay, so
What databases?
before we do databases, let's talk about add-ons in general. So one of the things that Heroku does as sort of a curated platform is makes it very easy to add databases, memcache, paper trail, which allows you to search your logs, sort of a robust logging platform. It allows you to add these without, again, provisioning any kind of Amazon servers and setting up shell scripts or Puppet scripts or Chef scripts. So we can add the paper trail add-on with the Heroku tool belt. And then all of those logs that we saw with Heroku logs will actually be funneled to Papertrail so that we can have a nice interface for searching them and viewing them. So with Heroku, now that I have that Papertrail add-on attached to my app, which is actually the first tier is free, I can open it and I should see my logs in their little web interface. No searchable events. Wait, I saw my app. So, yeah, here's my app. Why are there no events?
Well, have you done anything since you added the paper trail?
Yeah, that may be why.
Maybe it only gets new events. So if you changed hello to say something else, would it catch that?
But just running the app shouldn't fire off anything in the log unless it's based for the PHP log.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it has something to do with it being the free plan. Okay, so these are the logs which should be. Well, the idea is we have a bunch of add-on providers, and they provide things like this logging. New Relic is one of our add-on providers, so you can attach New Relic to your application, and they have a little guide. Usually, it's a little one command thing you have to add to your proc file or to your application, and then it'll be integrated with New Relic to give various metrics and insight into what your application is doing. We have databases, Postgres, MySQL, and some others, and then of course the caching, Redis, those kinds of things.
Do you use anything for infographics?
For what?
Infographics. So
doing image processing type stuff.
Like image magic?
No, for visualizing data, aggregations of data. So bar charts and.
Oh, like from the database.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these maybe. Not that I know of. No, these look like admin interfaces. Yeah, not that I know of. There may be something hiding in there, but I don't think so.
Is database part of the free tier?
Yeah, so it depends on the database. Though Heroku the Heroku Postgres, which is sort of our recommended database, has a free tier. These are the limits of it. It's basically how many rows, and then from there you upgrade accordingly. I think the highest levels are like dedicated servers and things like that. All right. Let's see if we can do a database add-on. Might be difficult without, that's showing the bash command. Might be difficult without me knowing anything about PHP. All right, so we'll have to do the Composer update. Can I brew install Composer? Nope. How do I install Composer?
Brew didn't have it?
No, maybe it's something else. Okay, cool.
How do you attach a domain name to your Heroku service?
We have a guide on that. It's basically just setting up seeding.
Is it name servers?
What's that?
Is it just you just update your name
Yeah,
servers?
yeah. And there's
And then your Heroku instance runs 24/7.
when it's free, it sleeps for 6 hours a day. But
Oh,
once
okay.
it's paid, which the lowest tier is $7 a month, it'll stay up 24/7. And I think there's some other benefits to beyond just running 24/7. All right, so I'm probably gonna have trouble with this. Let's switch to another language. We'll do Java because I know about that. So this Java application has some database stuff. You can see in here, it's just got a little bit of code to create a table, insert something into the table, and then update it. So yeah, let's create a new application for this. So this time it's going to detect that I have a Java application because I have a POM XML. It'll install OpenJDK, Maven, and then just like it ran in Composer, it's going to run Maven, download the dependencies from my app, compile my Java code.
What version of Java?
8. Well, that's the default. So then it takes all that compiled code, all of those jar files, the dependencies, and packages them up into a slug file. That's the image. That's what we call the image that I was talking about. And then compress it, so that's what's happening here. So it detected my web process type from my proc file, compressing that slug image, cool, and then I can open it up.
Did you deploy?
Yeah, it'll start up automatically after the deploy. So there it's going. Yeah, hello from Java. Okay, I think the Java build pack automatically attaches a database for me. Yeah, see, so normally if the build pack, which is, we have build packs for Java, build pack for PHP, that's the code that installs the JVM or PHP or whatever. Depending on the language, each of those will attach a database for you. If yours does not, you run a command like this, which is add-ons create and then the Heroku Postgres database.
Do you have to install and deploy your own, say, like database editing viewer tool if you wanted to?
No, if you want to do, I mean, it depends what you want to do. I mean, if you want to connect with a local client, you'll have to install PG tools. So I can run, what is it? PG pSQL, and because I have pSQL installed locally, it'll attach me to that
connect
database.
to the, okay.
Yeah,
okay,
so you can do the same thing.
I'm not used to that. I'm used to databases only accepting local connections.
Yeah. Well, the only reason it can connect is because it has the credentials. But you can do the same thing with any other kind of client. I actually use the database, the Heroku databases. I don't run Postgres locally. I just create, because it's just a pain in the butt, I create them on the Heroku servers and then use them with my local apps because I don't like setting them up and managing them.
I agree, they're painful sometimes.
Yeah. So because I have, so this was, the reason I knew I had a database was this database URL configuration variable. This is something Heroku sets up environment variables for your application.
So
and
the
for Java, there's
database
just not much.
is hosted on Amazon?
All of Heroku is on Amazon. So when
you
you're,
said it's
when
a layer on top of Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. It's a platform built on Amazon. We are
So you have like an EC2 instance probably here.
lots of them. We're Amazon's 5th biggest customer, so we run a good portion of the internet. So with this going, I can see. Yeah, actually, let me go back a few steps. So with pSQL, I can see that there were no database tables. And when I browse in my app to this DB route, which is going to initialize my database, all right, now it's read from the database. And if I run D again, I'll see there it created the table. Yeah, and there it created an entry in that table. And then each time I refresh, this is a really awesome app. It just basically bombs my database with stuff. There's a bunch more. All right, so in the last, 15 minutes, I provisioned servers, provisioned database, connected database, without doing any kind of operations work, without having to talk. Because, talking to operations people is like a real pain. They're grumpy.
We got one in here.
Oh, are they? Well, it's like the worst job in the world, right? They're the ones that wear the pager. That's why they're so grumpy. And what this allows you to do, especially if you're doing like DevOps kind of approach to working on your application, it takes a lot of pain off the developers who would otherwise be spending a good portion of their time, like I was saying, dealing with Amazon, dealing with machine images, Puppet scripts, Chef scripts, whatever.
Does Heroku support some kind of like cron service?
Yeah, we have a thing called Heroku Scheduler, and what it does is, in the same way cron would run, the scheduler runs one of your process types. So as I was saying, with the proc file, you can create a worker, you can create background jobs, and then you can define for the scheduler which of those jobs run and when they do. And that's actually an add-on. So let me see if I can show you that. Yeah, Heroku Scheduler. It's free, and there's probably some documentations on it.
Right. So you would need a $7 tier, otherwise you might miss your schedule.
No, I believe the scheduler will run, as long as you're not running a long-running thing that is supposed to run 24/7, it'll still run at that rate. Yeah, this is all the documentation on how to set up the scheduler.
Okay.
Let's see, let me make sure I don't have any other steps. Yep, okay, so that was basically all I wanted to cover. So, any questions? Do you want to see anything else? Any thoughts, concerns?
You can almost replace my web server.
You can almost replace your web server?
Almost.
Yeah.
What about email?
What about email?
Yes.
Like, do you want to run an email server on here? Is that what you're saying?
Right.
It's probably been done. So when I was talking about build packs, Heroku has. Let's see if I can, yeah, we have these build packs, which are actually like they're all open source, and build packs have kind of become a standard among like platform as a services like Cloud Foundry, OpenStack. They all use build packs now. We have these curated build packs for our major languages like Node.js, PHP, and Ruby. But you can make community build packs. So down here we see a lot, like ImageMagick. There's a build pack for installing ImageMagick into your Slug. There's build packs for installing app packages. All these kinds of things. And why did I show you this? What were you asking me? Oh, about email. I was wondering if there's probably an email server build pack.
Well, I'm not so much concerned about I mean, I could put my email somewhere else, but what about the send mail script? I mean, does Heroku support sending out the email through the web service? I mean, that's got to be done.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know a lot about setting up an email server, but it's a Linux server running on Heroku. So anything you can do, just about anything that you can do on an Amazon instance that you provision yourself.
I guess you can put in the code to have it go out to another service if you needed to send the email. Okay.
Oh yeah, like an SMTP server. Right. Yeah, or potentially run it on Heroku. I'm not sure, but yeah, if it's not free, it'll sleep 6 hours a day. So yeah, I'd encourage you though to give it a shot if you have your own application. It really should just be a matter of installing the tool belt, making sure you have that proc file. Sometimes you don't even, depending on the language, you don't even need the proc file. And then Heroku create and git push Heroku master. And 9 times out of 10, that works without any other configuration.
What are some of the bigger advantages you see of using Heroku for these kind of things? I mean, in terms of maybe as a web developer, I mean, obviously scaling up and being able to deploy something quick and then reconfigure it and without having to go through all the operations. But
so I think the most common, or one of the most popular cases, well, the 2 most popular cases for our users are people who work in small organizations that don't have the time or money to hire and have an operations team, and they just want to effectively outsource that to us. The other case is a team that's, we have a lot of mobile applications that use us for their back end because they have a team that's good at building mobile applications, but they don't necessarily have a team that's proficient or used to building server-side applications. And so in this way, they can set up a very simple Ruby app or Node.js app that creates an API for them that probably just does little stuff with a Postgres database, and then run that on Heroku without even knowing about Amazon. Like, yeah, Heroku runs on Amazon, but you don't need an Amazon account. You don't need to log into Amazon. It's completely transparent. So those are the 2 cases. Basically, relieving the need for extensive operations support on a small team, and then, or just a team that doesn't have that proficiency. But I mean, that's not to say that those are the only cases. I mean, we have some of our biggest customers are Toyota Europe, Macy's, Westfield. They're all organizations that can have their own operations team, but they choose to run on Heroku primarily because of security. Like I was saying, if there's an OpenSSL vulnerability, we update that for you, even down to the languages and frameworks. So if there's a vulnerability in the JDK, I'm updating that for you. Okay. So we keep watch on those kinds of things.
And in terms of being able to scale up, is that something that can be handled automatically based on load? And then do you have like load balancers and when you have multiple versions?
So we have an add-on for auto scaling. Opinions on that are mixed. Most people, I believe, are scaling manually. So like for example, Macy's will have a sale at noon and they know they're going to need more capacity. So they literally run Heroku PS scale, increase the number of instances, have their sale, and then when people are done buying socks, they scale back down. Dispose of those instances so that they're not paying for it. The autoscaler, I haven't actually used it for any of the stuff I've worked on, but some people just choose not to use it.
What about the load balancing aspect? Is that handled?
Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. So yeah, when you scale up, the Heroku router handles all load balancing, so you don't have to set up Apache or Nginx or anything like that. It's the Heroku router handling that for you. And it does a lot of stuff like not actually sending requests to a particular instance until it's attached to the port and running. It can handle session affinity. We discourage people from using sticky sessions, but it can do that kind of thing. Once a user hits a particular instance, continue routing them to that instance. But again, if you're scaling up and down frequently, that could be a problem for sticky sessions.
Do you know of any implementations where someone is using Heroku servers to coordinate intelligent objects? So I'm thinking Internet of Things kind of.
Oh yeah.
Stack.
I don't know the extent. I mean, that's like, our marketing department's always talking about our IoT customers, but I don't know the extent to what they're doing with that. Like I said, it's a really popular for many of our customers that have mobile devices, or the one that comes to mind is this company that has a smart grill that, like, the grill connects to the internet and does stuff. I don't really get it, but it's that kind of thing. So they're using it as the back end for orchestrating that.
Right. So there must be some kind of API set up between the grill and whatever server instance is going on.
But that part of it, like again, Heroku is very developer oriented. It's not like cloud platforms like Salesforce, where it's intended to be for non-developers. Like, this is for people who are writing code and building an application and choosing their own framework, whether it's like Node or Rails, and then building an application. So.
What are some of the selling points for, like, just let's say like someone that does web development on the side or something like that? Or are there some benefits that you guys have seen as a company that you promote to individuals such as that? I mean, they would most likely, like,
I know of one.
coming in, you're just looking at a small, simple instance, just barely beyond free, possibly.
I know of one. All his tools are up to date. I'm hit right now. My share provider, it's Ruby still on 1.8, so I can't even use some frameworks even if I wanted to, and that's not going to change.
Yeah.
All they care about is keeping PHP up to date.
We like most of the many of our customers, like, we find as we're doing support and stuff, are actually consultancies that are, like, one day I'm working with them on a particular app, and then the next day I'm working with them on something totally different. So they don't tell me they're a consultancy, but I can tell because of the way they're doing this. So companies like HashRocket and even Metabon here in Huntsville use Heroku for their customers. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah, I mean,
like, where it's, they're a consultancy that's trying to build either a proof of concept or just, start small. And I think that's really the advantage to Heroku is you can start with a proof of concept, and then without changing your platform or, making any kind of massive organizational change, scale up to a full-blown production application. So the way you create an app, like what I was doing with create and running without even running the app locally, a lot of our customers are doing that for their developers, where they'll have their own private instance that they deploy to sort of vet before they push their code into the main line. And then they have tests, staging, and production, all Heroku instances, and actually pipeline, which is a feature we have where you can, rather than deploying, you can actually deploy through that pipeline of instances.
Right. So if your site goes viral, you can fire up a lot more instances.
Yeah.
Versus if you're on a shared host like me, the host just melts.
Yeah, or you have to, if it's Amazon or DigitalOcean, you have to get more instances and you have to set them up. And I think that's really, like, you can set up Docker or something on DigitalOcean and do something like this yourself. But when it comes time to provision new instances or get rid of them because you don't want to pay for them anymore, that's where it gets expensive. So I forget who sort of coined this phrase, but we used to treat servers like pets, where we wanted to nurture them and keep them healthy, and when they were sick, we'd take them to the doctor, and we wanted them to live forever. But now, with the cloud and the cheapness of resources on platforms like Amazon and Heroku, we should be treating servers as cattle. So when they're sick, you kill them, and you get new ones. If you need more of them, you go to market, you buy new cattle. If you have too many, you don't want to pay to feed them just to have them around, so you sell them, get rid of them. And that idea of servers as a commodity rather than a part of your family is sort of what we promote. And I think what with virtualization and now with containers like Docker and whatever the hot new container is, I think that's the way things are going. I should say, I'm talking about Docker a lot, but Heroku is actually based on a container system called LXC, which we've been using for about 8 years, so slightly more mature than Docker, but still a container-based environment.
What are some of the risks of going with a system like this? I mean, things to watch out for, just in general.
I think there are some limitations. Like I'm talking about these containers, these isolated processes, and communicating between those is difficult. So if you want to do clustering type things, if you want to run Spark or Cassandra or some kind of big data processing engine, that's going to be effectively not possible. So there are limitations, but if you're willing to accept those limitations, there are benefits that go with it. So it's more of trade-offs than anything.
Fair enough.
What about, I have 8 or 9 websites. Would I attach, do I attach all my domains to my same Heroku account? And Heroku's smart enough to serve this page, this one, this page, this one? Or do I spin up like 8 different instances with 8 different name servers?
I'm not entirely sure.
It'd be kind of app dependent, right?
Yeah. I mean, you would have individual apps for Heroku. Actually, that's something else I wanted to show. Let me show you the Heroku dashboard, which is where a lot of like what you're talking about is configured. I was using the command line a lot because it's quicker.
Right now, my standard shared host, and it's very straightforward how to do that sort of thing.
With multiple domains, that'll be done at the Apache level.
Yeah, I think
PHP is ignorant to.
Yeah.
Right.
My understanding is that it's very straightforward. It's just not something I deal with on a daily basis.
So I'd have
but
one.
All of our customers are doing that.
So I'd have one Heroku instance that I'm paying for, and I would have to structure it in ways saying this goes here, this goes here, this goes here.
Right. You would have to have some sort of router on top because every domain coming into the same address.
Right, they are.
Then whatever the first
I see
app
what you're
they're
saying.
hitting. Because
Yeah.
ordinarily Apache sees what domain is making your request.
Yeah, it sees in the header, the request header, and then it says, okay, route this to this directory, and here's my app, serve that.
So yeah, you're running multiple applications on the same server. Is what you're
Yes.
saying. Yeah, and that's something we discourage effectively. But I don't know the extent to which you could route that within.
Well, I mean, maybe that's not encouraged, but I don't want to pay for 8 accounts for it.
You don't have to pay for 8 accounts, but you would pay for 8 applications.
Okay.
But anybody doing anything. When you're running multiple applications on a single server like that, they start competing for resources. If there's, you can have one that affects the others, and so what we're encouraging is that isolation between those applications.
Well,
Which
that's
is-
fine, but I don't.
Well,
Okay.
I think it's one app you're running, right? It's a website. And
It's a
you're
website
serving
with
different
8
content for different requests, right?
Right.
So from the public, it looks like you're serving 8 different websites, but
Right.
inside your shared host, there's one IP address,
One
there's
IP
one
address,
Apache instance,
one Apache.
right? And you've got virtual hosts or different document routes for different clients.
That's right.
So effectively, that's one app. You write a router or choose your favorite web scripting language that examines that host header and sends it to the right content that you're serving. And as long as all your customers are comfortable with the idea that they're sharing resources with other of your customers, which they are already, then it's one app as far as Heroku knows. I'm not saying you should game the system, but you're running one app. You're just serving different content.
But there's,
Yeah, that
Heroku
sounds
has no virtual
correct.
host capability, right? That's again at the Apache level. The
Yeah,
virtual
so like
hosting.
with the PHP build pack, it installs Apache, and you can configure it. I'm not really familiar with that because I'm dealing with Java applications which don't use Apache. You just run Java, and what you're describing would be written in Java code, effectively. And then the Heroku router just handles load balancing and some other
Right.
things. So I suspect what you're trying to do with, I don't know if it's a PHP application, but like I said, there are other build packs that'll set up Nginx with Ruby, I know, and
I guess
things
I'll
like
just have
that.
to
So.
play at the dashboard and take a look and
Yeah,
see
that,
how
I
the
think
system's
maybe what you're trying to do
I'm
is
sure it's been
sort of
done
by
before.
a specific build
Because
tag.
I have one site that hardly gets any hits at all. So I mean, it could easily piggyback off of something else.
All right, so this is the dashboard. I've already opened up the app I created for that PHP one, and you can see I can. Let's do all this. Yeah, I can scale it up, just like I did at the command line. I can find add-ons, so I should click that. I can view metrics for the application if I have more than one dyno running, but it hasn't been running long enough. I can view a history of deployments, activity. So this will show the history of deployments. This is where I added the paper trail resource. This is where I deployed. I can control access, so I can have other developers who can push to this. I can make them admins, whatever. And then settings is where you might see the configuration variables. This is where I would see the database URL. This is where you do the domain stuff. That's all set up here. And then transfer ownership and all that. Let's see if I have one that shows you. The metrics is actually pretty cool. Let's see if I can find. Oh yeah, here. WebJars. This is a real application that I work with. And you can see it's real-time statistics. It's response time. You can see errors that happen, and you can correlate that to spikes in memory usage or CPU usage. All of this is free. Like free in the sense you don't have to write any code to get all this. This is just something Heroku provides for your application, as long as you have a non-free application.
Can you export this as well as the activity in some way?
The activity you can. This I don't think you can. It's it's not data in the sense that like you can download it and do anything with it. If you want that, then you probably need New Relic or something more
Is that
advanced.
stuff that you pulled off of your access logs from Amazon? Because I've tried to parse those.
This?
Is that where the info?
No, I mean this is from a great deal of instrumentation that we do on the containers, monitoring resource usage and things like that. So it's all part of our platform.
Can you adjust the window of time that you're looking at?
Maybe. No, I don't think so.
So it's 24 hours.
Yeah. There's words and documentation about this, so maybe. But yeah, it's since we introduced this, it's like relieved our support load quite a bit because people will, instead of contacting, it allows you to just get better insight into your application. Instead of people just being like, hey, I've got a problem, they'll go to their dashboard, they'll see that there's this big spike in memory usage, and at the same time there's this degradation in response times, and they can figure out what's going on.
Can I kind of survey the group in terms of how you're doing your own hosting now? These are all web developers here, right? If there are three broad buckets, either self-hosted or like maybe your company has ornery ops guys that keep your site running, or shared hosted, it sounds like maybe managed services where someone else is taking care of that pet for you,
Right.
or a platform as a service where you're using Heroku or a similar platform. Where do you see yourself in terms of those three? How are you deploying applications? Who's sort of doing it themselves? Administrating Linux or your favorite web server databases?
I do both.
And then managed services?
I'm
Yeah. And then everyone else is doing platform as a service? Or okay. I'm just curious.
I have a VPS and I'm doing shared house. One thing I haven't done is the Heroku style.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm looking into this.
One reason I think Heroku is so great for web developers is that you get to focus on what you're really good at, what you really love, and basically package up all the instantiation and scaling and everything in just the command you saw earlier.
Right.
So
Right, I agree, it looks good, but I have trouble wrapping my head around it because I've been doing the standard LAMP stack for 8 years.
Mhm.
So it's just a different way of
well, you
thinking
would still
about
do
it.
the LAMP stack, absolutely. You would just get to concentrate on the P. And Heroku would handle LAM for you.
I'm going to interrupt real quick. It's 1 o'clock. I know some of you guys may need to get back to the office. I know Joe's got a few minutes. He can probably hang around for some questions before he moves on to his next thing here. So first of all, Joe, thank you for presentation.
Thank you for having me.
Like I said, if you guys have any questions for Joe,